folks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my belated July reading wrap up. So sorry about the delay in videos again. I hit July and it's my busiest month of the year and most stressful month, one of my busiest and most stressful months of the year at work. And then mid-July I went down with the head cold from hell with bonus throat infection, which honestly I am 4 weeks later still not entirely over. So I've been through 2 rounds of antibiotics. I'm still got a little bit of an intermittent cough and sniffles, particularly at night. My energy levels, both mental and physical, have been not great. So even my embroidery took a back seat, my reading took a back seat. I did miss one hockey game I had tickets for when I was still in the midst of the really bad illness. But now I'm starting to get better. My energy levels are starting to get back up. Work's getting a little bit more under control. The Canberra Braves home ice hockey season is done. We've only got another couple of away games and the finals. And I've even managed to start back at the gym very, very gently on the treadmill this week. So, yeah, so time to start filming again and catch up on some stuff. I have at least 2 hour crates lying around here that need to be unboxed. And like I said, my July reading wrap up, which was okay. I read 9 things, mostly because I was in the last sprint during the first part of the month of the Hugo Award reading that I was doing. Honestly, once that was done, middle of the month, I've got nothing else on my Goodreads. Like, I literally read nothing else because I was just too unwell. I was just reading fan fiction over and over and over again. So, like, yeah, 9 books in like half a month or so is not too bad. So what did I read? Okay, I started off the month with some Hugo reading and Why Don't We Just Kill the Kid in the Mellors Hole by Isabel J. Kim. This was a really uncomfortable story, essentially about this perfect paradise country that is kept in a perfect paradise because they keep a child imprisoned in a hole as a sacrifice. And then occasionally people come in and kill that kid to try and show people why this perfect country shouldn't be perfect. And yeah, interesting, but very uncomfortable. Then I read Navigational Entanglements by Elliot Boddard. So this is not, as far as I can tell, in her Zuya universe. This was on the Hugo list and it was a novella, still space opera-y, essentially about a world where certain families have the ability to use their shadow powers to enable space travel, but one of the risks of this is tanglers, which are these interspatial creatures who can kill, and these 4 disparate sort of unwanted members of these 4 clans get sent on this mission to try and track down a tangler that has escaped and uncover a conspiracy in the process. So yeah, that was fun. It was a bit of a fun read. Well, not fun, but it was an enjoyable read. I am reading quite a lot of Elliot Boddard at the moment, as you're aware, because I've been reading the Zuya universe this year. And she's a very, very good writer, particularly when she's doing her space opera stuff, which is stuff that I like. Then I picked up a random Pride and Prejudice variation, which was Fanny's Unyielding Spirit by Grandi Eden. And in this one, we start with a 16-year-old Fanny Gardner, who, much to her horror, is essentially stalked and compromised by Mr. Bennet, who has decided he wants to marry this beautiful young girl. She's forced to marry him and then raise her 5 daughters with a husband who is just sort of cruel and only interested in his own things. He eventually gets a knighthood instead of Sir William, and is just doing his various investment stuff. So what she learns to do is manage the estate and keep how well it's being managed from her husband, so she can put aside money for her future, and trying not to fall in love with the estate steward at the same time, because she's a married woman and she has made vows even if they were against her will. So yeah, so that's interesting. I'm using the word interesting a lot. My brain is still blur, and a lot of this stuff I don't actually remember really well. So then I read The Practice, the Horizon and the Chain by Sophia Samatar. This is a space opera one on these world ships where it has a heavily enforced caste system, and an academic who is in sort of the middle caste is trying to do some work with someone who has the ability to do art in the lowest caste, but he cannot. He has difficulty adjusting to the lack of chains, and there's a whole religious element as well, which is really interesting. So that was interesting as well. Then I read Signs of Life by Sarah Pinsker, and honestly I am struggling to remember, even after checking like Goodreads, what this one was about. Signs of Life. I mean, I usually like Sarah Pinsker's writing, but it's not ringing a bell, which is not great. I assume I enjoyed it, but really can't remember which one that was. It's completely blank in my memory. Interesting. Then I read Stitched to Skin Like Family by Family Is by Nevo. This was a bit of a horror-y story in which a young woman comes to an inn in search of her brother using the memory of clothing. So the memory is embedded in clothing, and eventually avenges him because he was killed by the racist family that owns the inn, and uses said clothes to do that. So that was, pointed, I think is the word. Then I also listened to and finished Unruly, The Ridiculous History of England's Kings and Queens by David Mitchell. This was as an audiobook, and it was essentially David Mitchell's, I believe it was David Mitchell's lockdown project, in which he essentially went through the history of the Kings and Queens of England, but just the interesting bits that interested him. So with his inimitable style of comedy. So that was fun. And then I read The Brotherhood of Montague St. Video by Thomas Ha, and this is one where people are moving more and more into a virtual world, but there are like brotherhoods which still try and keep physical imperfect objects and media. And it's the story of one particular man who is going through his mother's apartment, and sort of being stalked by someone who wants to erase a certain video and book from the world, and he decides that he doesn't want that to happen. And then I finished up the month with The Four Sisters Overlooking the Sea by Naomi Kritzer, which was essentially a Selkie story, but essentially a woman has moved to a town outside Boston because her husband has been offered a job at Harvard University, and in the past they were both academics on the path towards academic careers. She got pregnant, and also I think just before that her life's work on harbour seals was lost, and the backup was lost, and so because of that she lost her funding, and so she's been following her husband around, editing his papers, mostly writing his papers with no credit because he's got the academic career. And she discovers that some of the harbours, she recognises in this small town, which has this sort of history of, it was established by four sisters and all the land is owned by the town and not individuals. And there are these seals nearby, and she recognises their voices, and she's like, these are the harbour seals. These are some of the harbour seals I was studying back then. And in the process, she discovers, and in becoming friends with some of the other women in the town, and starts interacting with the seals, and then she discovers that the backup drive for her life's work is hidden under her husband's desk. He purposefully hid her work to make sure his career was prioritized. So she ends up asking the ocean for help. And you can sort of, when I say Selkie, you can probably figure out how that went. Sort of. But yes, so I quite enjoyed that one. And that was, I think, the last thing I read for the Hugo Awards. And at that point, I got sick and did not really read anything else for the rest of the month. So I read 9 things, which is still pretty good. And I think at least 4 of them were by non-white authors, and at least 1 had queer characters and relationships. So it actually wasn't too bad of a month. I'm not sure how I'm doing so far this month because I haven't actually put any of it into Goodreads yet. But it's, again, the start of the month's been pretty rough mentally with work stuff. So it's probably not actually going all that well. I've mostly been comfort reading shit. So I need to sort that out soon. But at least now you have an update. You have my July update. Hopefully I might try and actually film at least 1 unboxing video this weekend as well, so it's ready to go for next weekend. And I'll try and get back into the swing of things. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Try. All right. Anyway, always happy to chat about books in the comments, and I will see you all again really soon. Bye.